Welcome everybody to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining with me here today. And if you haven't already, please get down below there. Hit that subscribe button to follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. In fact, hit that bell notification to be notified of upcoming episodes. Today, we're going to be planting out some of the starts that we started from our soil blocks. We had a few successes and a few failures. But before we do that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be seeding out some of our warm weather crops. We've got a few different varieties of cucumbers, beans, and even a really cool pumpkin start that we're going to get going this year in our alleyway gardens. Plus, I also have a tip on getting some of your squash started. So now that we've got all of our containers all filled out with soil, it's time to plant out our seeds. So I've got a couple of different tips for you that I've learned along the way. The first tip is we've got a lot of different varieties that we're going to be planting out in all of our different containers that we've got. So I've got these craft sticks here. What we'll be doing with these craft sticks is using them for our labels for each of our different varieties. But instead of writing down each one of the names on each one of these craft sticks, all we're going to do is we're going to take and make a list of each of our different varieties that we're growing, and then all we're going to do is put a number right next to them. And then we'll use that number for each of our sticks instead of writing down each one of these varieties. And the other tip that I have for you is one of the things that we're going to be planting out here among our cucumbers and our sunflowers and our beans and our pumpkins and all those different things is going to be squash. And squash doesn't like to be transplanted very well. So the problem there is that when the roots start to get bunched up, the squash plant starts to get into some stress. So one of the big tips that I learned along the way that helped out my squash plants, because first of all too, I grow out on a alleyway, and in that alleyway I have a lot of pest pressure. So my little starts of squash, if I direct seed those, are going to get eaten up really quickly. So I give them a really good head start in these 1 gallon tubs. Instead of using these smaller 2-inch pots or the 3-inch pots that we're using, we use the 1 gallon tub. That'll give your squash plants a few extra weeks to get a good head start before planting them out into their space along our alleyway garden here. So if you have a similar situation with pest pressure and you want to give your squash a good head start, plant them out in these 1 gallon tubs. I usually put about 3 seeds in each, and then when they get to be about 2 or 3 inches big, putting out maybe their second true leaves, then at that point I will cut them down to just 1 plant, and then after that we'll transplant that out into our garden space. The only thing there is what you're going to want to do is make the hole a lot bigger to be able to fit the whole amount, because you're going to want to take all of this out and that whole root system and put that into the ground. And now it's time to get started planting out all of these different varieties here, and then they'll get started and be ready to be planted out in our gardens here in a few weeks as we approach our last frost date. And then in a few moments we'll get out there and start planting out some of our soil block starts that we got around our gardens. So alright, now it's time to plant out some of the starts that we started earlier this season from seed, from soil blocks. Now I haven't tried soil blocks before. I've been wanting to do that for the last couple of seasons. So I finally got out and got one of those soil blockers, mixed up some good soil blocking soil, and we planted out some of our cool weather crops. For the most part, they all have done pretty well. We've got some cabbages, we've got some broccolis. As you can see here, I've got a couple of different varieties of kale, some dinosaur kale, some blue curled kale, and we also got some radicchio starts that are looking really well too. We did have a couple of different failures. For the most part, I think the seed and variety is what was the problem. We did have a couple of the varieties that didn't grow at all, and I'm pretty sure again it was the seed, as we didn't get any germination from them whatsoever. And a couple of our varieties like Chinese cabbage, tot soy, and a couple of the spinach varieties that we chose just immediately went to seed, so we're not going to be able to plant those ones out. I did get one variety of spinach though that did work out really well. We've got this Olympia variety of spinach, and they look really nice, so I can't wait to plant those out in some of our garden boxes as well too. So let's get to planting these starts. So alright, there we go. We've got this bed all planted out. We've got cabbage, broccoli, cabbage, broccoli. Working our way right down the line here on this bed. So on one of our more recent episodes of The Urban Gardener, we took this old broken down box from our back patio that kind of fell apart this last winter, and we brought it back to life. Gave it some new legs and some new strength, and we filled it up using a hugelkultur method of filling up your boxes or garden beds, and that's where we took some wood and logs and we put those down in the bottom of the garden box, and then we top that off with soil and compost. This box has been sitting for the last week or two now, just waiting to be planted out. And so I've chosen some of our spinach starts, at least the spinach starts that survived our soil blocks here and didn't go to seed. This Olympia spinach will plant out in this box, as well as some other things in the coming days. So alright, all planted out on this bed. There is still some space, like I said, for something else I might put in here in just another day or so. We'll see. But I did decide to go ahead and plant out the radicchio to go along with our spinach. And in just a week or so, these beds should be nice and filled out. We'll be harvesting real soon. So in our back alleyway, we've got this fence along the back side of the property there, and it's got this space that runs along the fence here. And you can see we've got our garlic, which is only about a month or so away from harvesting, so keep an eye out for an upcoming episode there where we harvest our garlic. As you can see, this is the back alleyway that intersects with the alley that runs along the house there, and on the other side of this fence is where we grow our peppers. And we're going to use this space right here, right next to the garlic, to grow out the kale that we got started from our soil blocks. We've got a red Russian variety, a blue curled, and a Tuscan. And we're going to plant them into 3 rows there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger those rows in order to optimize the space there, because we're going to have them planted kind of closely. Before we do that though, I'm going to top off the soil here as I do every season to give the soil some new organic material and all of that. It's kind of some of our compost mix that we've got that's sifted, and some of our other growing blend as well. So we're going to mix that in and just top off the area here, and then plant in our kale starts. Alright, all planted in, and again, like I said, we got our blue curled, and then the Tuscan, and then our red Russian kale in the front, all staggered. And this is a pretty intense planting for kale, but hopefully keeping it harvested back when they start growing really well, we'll be able to optimize this space. So we did soil block and start out some Brussels sprouts, but right now I don't have anywhere in the garden that I'm going to be putting them in for the moment, so I potted them up into these 1-gallon containers, and they'll sit in here for the next several weeks or so until we harvest out one of our boxes that they'll be going into to pretty much just grow throughout the summer. I'm going to try to make sure that we just take care of them and hopefully keep the pest pressure off as well as we can in order to let them mature really well. And then in the fall, when it starts to cool down, they'll set out their sprouts, and then we'll start harvesting them later in the fall. So alright, what a great day in the garden today. Got a bunch of things accomplished. We got out all of those seeds that we needed to get seeded out for our warm weather season. I really can't wait for that time of year when we get to plant out all of our melons and cucumbers and bring out our tomatoes and peppers. It's just going to be really great here in the next few weeks. So I hope that you all keep following along. Plus, we got all of our soil blocks all planted or potted up in the case of our Brussels sprouts, but we got all those out. So it's great to get those sort of things accomplished in our gardens this time of year. And it's really great to have all of you along here with me on this great gardening adventure here on The Urban Gardener. I love to be able to share all of these sort of things with you here that we got growing on in our gardens. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Get down in that comment section below and let me know you were here, or if you got any questions or comments or anything at all. I'd love to hear from all of you. And don't forget, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. In fact, hit that bell notification so you can be notified of our upcoming episodes. And I'll see all of you on our very next one. So alright, now it's time to plant a few different varieties of all of those soil blockers. I don't know why I keep calling them soil blockers. I can't get that out of my head. And let me know how you... Oh, we were going good there. Well, we did get all of our soil blocks all potted up in case of our Brussels sprouts are planted into our garden box. As far as our, yeah, that was kind of went in another direction. And hit that bell notification, and darn. And